How about happy birthday to us? Happy birthday to us. Welcome to the season 12 premiere of Third Song In with Chris Derrickson and Tom Polachek. This week, your podcasters celebrate finishing our sixth decade on the planet. Holy shit.
Did you stop singing the song because you forgot the rest of the words?
And where I live, and yes, I've forgotten many things already, and it's only 7 in the morning.
Yeah, I don't. You put a little comment on here and turning 60 and still feel 16. I've joked multiple times on the show and in my blogs about running through the old person's neighborhood. I feel a lot closer to 16 than I do to those people, and I'm age-wise, I'm much fucking closer to those people than I am
Yeah.
to 16.
How often do you see you're watching TV, like even this past weekend, you watch the NCAA tournament and you see somebody, they go to the crowd and you see some old fucker, and then you realize that they're your age or younger and they look so fucking old. And and then if you go up, let's say you take a break, you gotta go to the bathroom in the middle of a game and you look in the mirror and you're like, fuck, that's an old man right there. This trying to do this podcast also, it's fun. It's definitely the most fun thing I've been doing for the last couple of years for sure, but it also is kind of a constant reminder of how old we are because we're trying. I mean, we're not trying to be hip, don't get me wrong. But we are trying to keep up. We're trying to, listen to new music. We're trying to read new books. We're trying to, watch new films and stuff. And let's face it, most of this shit isn't aimed at us. We're not the demo that
No,
people are interested in at this point.
yeah, not apparently not much at all.
It's like when you first realize that you go into a bar or just about anywhere in public and you see a pretty girl and you're like, ah, look at that pretty girl. And then you realize that she doesn't even see you.
Or
Like
if she does, she's like, should I help him to his chair? You know, so
she's like, I wish that fucking old guy with the giant head would get out of the way. There's a cute guy over there.
yeah, it's like, I mean, I've always tried to be respectful, but I try even harder now never to stare because I don't want to be like the creepy old
I
dude who's
know.
staring. I'm like, nope, I'm good. I'm good. Don't even see you. All right, so we are going to freeform this a little bit, and we're just going to talk a lot about the 1966, our year of birth, things that might have been popular back then, and then we'll throw other stuff at you as it occurs to us.
Well, the one thing we haven't actually said specifically, we've been talking in general terms about how old we are, but this episode should come out just before both of our birthdays. We were both born in May, and we will both be turning 60 I'll be turning 60 within days of the release of this episode, and you will be turning 60 within a couple weeks. And
Yeah.
that has been really hard for me to kind of wrap my head around. I've uh, I've I've never had a problem with milestone birthdays. When I turned
Yeah.
50, it wasn't that big a deal to me. That was I don't know if you remember. I think I told you the story way back when my wife threw a surprise 50th birthday for me, and the surprise was she waited for 6 months before she threw the party. So so like I don't know, it was like August maybe, or something. It was later than that. It might have even been October, November. She asked me to take her to dinner downtown Joliet, and she had like a surprise party for me, and a bunch of people were there. But it was a huge surprise because I had turned 50 like half a year before that. But even that, when you're confronted by it, it didn't really bother me. It didn't, hitting 30, hitting 40, hitting 50 didn't bother me. And this doesn't bother me other than just the realization that we're so far past halfway. You know what I mean? Like when you're 50, you're like, I might make it to 100. 60, you're thinking, I don't even want to make it to 100, let alone 120. That's crazy.
I think I've received now 3 postcards from my high school of classmates who passed away.
Yeah.
And we'll see stuff, and you probably more than me. I don't read it. The Wash U and notes on people who passed away, and we all know people who passed away. It's sobering. I don't know. I just try not to think about it. I have no idea how many more years I have. So if I speculate, could be. So, all right, let's just talk about something fun.
Yeah, just on that point, I know you're not on Facebook very often. I'm on
No.
Facebook, definitely throughout the week. I'm on Facebook for one reason or another, and I'm part of a Facebook group that's just the graduating class from the high school, my second high school, the school I actually graduated from in Pennsylvania, and it seems like every other month someone else has passed away. And because I moved around so much, some of the people I don't recognize the names, but just when you see the year of birth, when they say the date they were born, that is sobering. That does kind of hit you in the face. It really impacted me, and I was going to talk about this a little bit later, but this episode originally was scheduled to be an interview of a friend of mine from my first high school in West Virginia, where I went to junior high school and high school outside of Wheeling, West Virginia. And there was a kid I met when we moved to West Virginia. I was, I think, fifth or sixth grade. And I played football with him. I think he ran track. I know he was in the band. When we went to high school, he stopped playing sports basically, and he was very much a band kid. And we kind of lost track of each other at that point. And then I moved away. Well, to make a really long story short, he had a very successful business career in the insurance industry. He retired a few years ago and decided to live out the rest of his life, live out his dream of being a novelist. And he started writing historical novels. His name was Alan Ladd, Hlad. He's got about half a dozen novels out that he wrote all in the last 5 or 6 years. And I tracked him down through Facebook actually, and then through his website. And we were going to interview him for this episode for the premiere of season 12. And I was really excited. I had had a phone call with him, and we tried to catch up a little bit. And I was really interested to talk to him because he was living in Europe at this point. And then I got a text from his number about a month ago. It turned out to be his wife telling me that he had passed away in his sleep, taking a nap from a heart attack, just like in the middle of the day on a Sunday. And that did hit me really hard. And obviously, it had an immediate impact on us. I texted you immediately, said, "Holy shit. Remember that guy, Alan, that we were going to talk to? Well, we can't talk to him anymore." So, in that sense, we've never done this before, but I kind of dedicate this episode to him because it was really fun talking to him. We hadn't talked to each other in probably 40 plus years. And he's just a really genuinely nice guy who had, I think, enjoyed his life up to the point of retirement, but then he just decided to do what he wanted to do, and decided to focus on something that really made him happy, which was writing these novels and traveling around Europe. So here's to Alan.
Here's Alan. I didn't get to meet him. I'm bummed that I didn't.
All right, well, let's stop that because that's fucking bringing me down. As you said, we were going to talk about stuff that came out in 1966, the year we, came out, I guess. That's a weird way to put it. So I don't know about you, but I did some Google. I looked for, top 5 songs, top 5 films, top 5 TV, those kind of things. It was interesting to see. And of course, these aren't necessarily things that we were interested in or viewed or consumed because we were babies. But it is interesting to see just what did come out and what held on, and things that are still, I would say, important now, and of course some things that weren't.
And we may have listened to it, like our moms, while they're feeding us or napping us, they may have played some of these songs in our nurseries or whatever we had.
Yeah, I suppose that's true.
Yeah. I'd like to think that I was listening to country music back in 1966.
Yeah, that seems very possible. Just
Yeah.
based upon what you've talked about, your family history, your grandparents, and what they listened to, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I don't think 1966 would have was it really the whole idea of adult contemporary? Because that's what my mom listened to when I was older. she'd hog the car radio and I'd listen to that stuff.
Yeah, 66 was, I think, pre-FM radio. I don't think there was much
Yeah.
on FM at that point. And that's where that AOR, that kind of thing, I think really took hold was in FM radio, which would have been more like when we were in elementary school, junior high, that kind of thing. So I looked up the Rolling Stones reader poll for top songs that were released in 1966. And they the top five songs going from five to one were My Generation by The Who, Gimme Shelter by the Rolling Stones, Satisfaction by the Rolling Stones, A Day in the Life by the Beatles, and Like a Rolling Stone by Bob Dylan.
Nice.
So I don't know if those were the biggest selling songs. It was kind of hard to tell from the website, from the magazine Rolling Stone website. There's a lot of Rolling Stones in this conversation. But that really surprised me just how, I mean, those songs are in the radio today. I bet you WXRT in Chicago will play at least one of those songs in the next 24 hours. They are still very important songs. That people listen to them. Younger generations listen to them. I mean, those were the cornerstones of, I think, of American rock and roll, even though they were practically all British.
I went a little different direction. I looked up the Billboard Top Country Singles in 1966. Number one was Swinging Doors by Merle Haggard. Number two, Almost Persuaded by David Houston. And David Houston was obviously really important. I think my grandparents listened to him quite a bit. I've never gravitated towards his stuff. So, of the people on the list, he's the one that I probably should listen to a little bit more. Number three, I Love You Drops by Bill Anderson, who was a classic. You Ain't Woman Enough to Take My Man by the great Loretta Lynn was number four. And number five was Think of Me by Buck Owens. And I did listen to Buck Owens quite a bit because Dwight Yoakam helped revive his career later. The whole what's the name of where he was
Bakersfield.
from? Bakersfield sound. And he was one of the co-hosts on Hee Haw, which was my grandparents' favorite TV show by and far.
Yes. Yeah, I really liked Dwight Yoakam. He was one of the guys that kind of drew me into country music back when we were
Yeah.
discovering alt country and all that other kind of stuff. And that's where you get into that, you tunnel backwards from there and you find out that Buck Owens wasn't just a kind of a grinning goofball like he was on Hee Haw, but actually like one of the legends, one of the Mount Rushmore type figures in country music, particularly. Definitely, as far as he was the Bakersfield sound, I think, as far as that goes. That's a cool list. I did not think of looking to specific genres, and as I said, it's interesting that the Rolling Stone list, obviously, that's just showing the heart of the British invasion. And I can remember, talking to my dad, even in the interview of my dad way back when on this podcast. He talked a lot about folk music, and that was what he liked. But he also talked about how, the British invasion was such a huge deal, and that would have been just before I was born, basically.
Well, real quick, I won't go through the whole list because I'm not 100% sure how this one was compiled. But this one's based more on the true, I guess maybe Billboard was too, the true singles. And the number one R&B at that time was one of the big categories. It should be classified differently now. Sam and Dave's single was number one in 1966. So isn't that the group that maybe I'm wrong, but I thought Sam and Dave in Tapeheads? Was that
No, I
was that
think that was the Swanky Modes.
I know the
In the
Swanky
movie,
Modes, but I thought they
they were
maybe
called
called
Swanky.
themselves something else.
I think that those guys were from that generation, and I think in the film they were basically supposed to be a Sam and Dave.
Okay, they're supposed to be. Okay, they're supposed to
Yeah,
be. Great.
that's how I viewed it, because it wasn't those two guys. They were two different performers, I believe, but they were also, they were successful soul singers, I think, back in the day, back in the 60s, I'm sure. That's what single was it then of theirs? I don't. Did you say the title? Oh, Sam
I
and
did
Dave.
not say the title. So the single, the A side was "Hold On, I'm a Comin'." B sides probably don't matter anymore. Every once in a while, you'll get a B side. Number two, "Cool Jerk" by the Capitals. Number three was "Baby Scratch My Back" by Slim Harpo.
Ah,
Ain't Too Proud to Beg by the
uh,
Great Temptations was number four. And then Robert Parker had Barefootin'. And going down one more, a couple more actually. Wilson Pickett, Stevie Wonder, Percy Sledge, The Temptations again, just some Lou Rawls, just some great names on that
jeez.
list.
Yeah, that's strange to me because those you'd expect those names to be at the top. And of course, you pick a single year, they may have been at the
Right.
top prior to that, and we're slowly moving down. But that's a nice lineup. That sounds like that'd be a pretty good mixtape right there. The other topic that I Googled was films. And I found on IMDb, there was a list of the top five films that were released in 1966. And contrary to what you just hinted at, I haven't seen a single one of these movies. I have not even seen the
Okay.
number one film, which I've always felt like I should because everybody raves about it. But most of them I haven't even heard of. There, starting from number five, there was The Chase, which was directed by Arthur Penn and had Marlon Brando, Jane Fonda, and Robert Redford. That seems like a movie I should have seen. Blow Up is a movie directed by Michelangelo Antonioni. That can't be right.
Hmm.
Antonioni? I'm not sure. Anyway, I thought, oh, I saw that movie, and then I read the description of it and realized that I have seen the movie Blow Out with John Travolta, which came out like in the
Yeah.
70s, but not this one. The next movie was The Big Gun Down by director Sergio Solima. Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf was number two, directed by Mike Nichols, and that was with Liz Taylor, Richard Burton, George Segal. Again, that's a movie I've certainly heard of, never seen. And then the number one movie that they say that came out in 66 was The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Now, I know that film, but I've never watched that film from start to finish. I've seen, I think, highlights, I've watched clips of it, but I've never actually watched the whole thing. What was interesting to me is that was directed by Sergio Leone. So there are three Italian directors in that
Hmm.
top five list from 1966. And I mean, the only one that's a Western is the one with Clint Eastwood, The Good, the Bad, the Ugly. Because I remember they would talk about spaghetti westerns. That was like when that was a big deal. That's what made Clint Eastwood famous. Was he did all these westerns early, kind of midway through his career, with all these Italian filmmakers, and then he kind of then branched out and did his own thing. But I have literally not seen one of those films, and a couple of them I feel like I should have, but I had no idea what two or three of them are even about.
Yeah, I had the same confusion as you, realizing that there's no way that John Travolta was in a 1966 movie because I think
Right?
Travolta was in Blowout. So I have
Yeah,
a
he would have been
first,
like seven, maybe. I don't know.
yeah. I've heard many times of The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. I've seen clips. I've never seen the whole movie. The name that stands out, which I feel like I've read about him in some course that I must have taken back in the day, was Mike Nichols, director. I mean, he's got
Yeah.
a very storied career. I just didn't. I've never seen this movie either. And of course, I've heard of Arthur Penn as well. I'm with you. I haven't seen any of these movies. Some of the descriptions, like Blow Up, is described as a countercultural masterpiece, and you're going to see that term a lot back in the day. And I'm trying to remember when I don't think it was 66, but Bonnie and Clyde was, my parents took me to see that in a drive-in, I remember, which freaked me out with the closing
Yeah.
scene where they were shot up. But I think that was back close to 1966. I will look it up as we chat.
Yeah, that was probably 69 or 70, I think, when it came out. If you saw the
I think you're
drive-through,
right.
or if
Yeah.
you didn't see the drive-through, that would be weird. Uh, but if you saw it at a drive-in,
1967. 1967.
oh no shit, that's even earlier than I thought. So it was, that's the thing about drive-in movie theaters. When we were
Yeah.
kids, they would do the older releases because they could buy them for cheap, I think. And
Yep.
that would be a tough one to watch as a 4-year-old or a 5-year-old or whatever you were.
And speaking, we're going to talk about this in a little bit too. I think they still exist, but drive-ins are not nearly what they were when we were younger. Like it was a big deal to go to a drive-in movie. For those who don't know what a drive-in is, I'll just describe it really quick. You drive your car in, almost always on a gravel lot, and then have these posts with these hanging speakers. So you drive up as close as you could, roll down your window part of the way, hang the speaker inside your window, And then if you're kids, you drive your parents nuts until they go to the concession stand and buy you some sort of food. Oftentimes, we people would go in a pickup truck and sit
Yep.
in the back with chairs or on the ground with chairs, or you just sit on top of your car. It was just a whole new experience. Usually the audio wasn't all that great, but you could get the
Yeah.
idea. It was on this huge screen at the end of the gravel lot. It was just a very different way. And for me as a kid, it was I always look forward to going to the drive-in. That was an event every time we went.
Yeah, that was always really exciting. I remember the same thing. I mean, you'd go like we'd go. We were little kids. You'd wear your pajamas because there was always
Yeah,
obviously they had to wait until it got dark. It was always summertime, so the movie
right.
wouldn't start till 9 o'clock or so. So we'd be 10 years old and wearing our pajamas, and you could always bring in your own food, of course. So it was a little cheaper experience in that way. Um, I was I've done a lot of cross country driving over the last 6, 7 years or so because I needed to go to Philadelphia to visit my daughter in college, and now the boys are going to school in Iowa. And there is a single drive-through that you can see from the highway on your way through, and I want to say it's in Ohio. As you go by on Highway 80 around the Ohio Turnpike, and there's what looks to be a working drive-through theater. Now, I've
Hmm.
never driven by at night. I've never seen it playing a show, but it looks really well kept. It looks like it's still being used. And the same thing is true. There's a tiny little drive-in theater on the way from Joliet to Iowa, to Dubuque, Iowa, where my boys go to school. And I can't tell if that one's working or not. It looks a little bit more beat up. I mean, the grass is all cut and everything when you drive by, but I can't tell if people are actually using it as a drive-in. Uh, I remember the very last time I went to a drive-in theater, I took a girl. I think I was a freshman or a sophomore at WashU, and I took a girl who was a few years older than me, and we went to a drive-in theater somewhere out in St. Louis County. I can't remember the movie. I can tell you I did not get lucky, which was what I thought was going to happen. But that's the last. I never took my kid. I've never taken my kids to a drive-in. I wish I had. I think it would be a fun experience, or would have been.
Yeah, and I can't remember the last one I went to. I feel like I went when I was older, and I was like, this isn't nearly as good as I remember it being. It's just different when you're a kid because you don't have the
Yes.
same expectations. You're there to party and drive your parents crazy and then fall asleep in the backseat.
Right. Yeah. The biggest difference I noticed when I went in the 80s was that you could tune into the sound on your FM radio. Like they
Oh yeah,
broadcast.
that's right.
So you didn't have that tinny, shitty sounding speaker
Yes.
that you hung on the window. That was the one improvement I saw. Um, so you didn't have to like have your window part way rolled down or whatever. I still didn't get lucky though. So
All right. So you also looked at Nielsen ratings for top shows on TV in 1966, and these I think both of us have seen far more of.
yes, yeah, for sure. Although here's the thing that occurred to me as I was looking at that. Do you have a specific recollection of being a kid and watching TV? I'm not sure how to put this question. What I remember seeing on TV was the Vietnam War. I remember because my parents would have the news on. We lived out east, so it was like the 6 o'clock news, 7 o'clock news, and I can remember it'd be on. We'd be eating dinner. The TV would be on. In my house, you could see the TV from the kitchen table, and I just remember seeing footage of soldiers in the jungle, explosions, just like little clips, and I'm sure they were very sanitized, because they were being played on network TV, network news. But that's the real recollection I have of watching TV is news of a war that scared the hell out of me, and I didn't understand at all when I was little. We were living at one point. We were living in Indiana, and I can remember not being able to sleep because I was worried I was going to be drafted. And I
Hmm.
was like 7 years old or 8 years old. And I know all of it came from hearing constant updates and news. And actually, I was probably even younger than that now that I think about it, because it was probably 69, 70 was, the end of everything that was going on over there. But those, I have very vivid recollections of seeing that kind of stuff on TV. And everything else I've seen, like this list we have of TV shows, I've watched it, but I always watched that stuff was all in syndication by the time I watched it. I don't remember seeing any of those things brand new on, on prime time or anything like that.
Yeah, I don't remember watching any of these. I have vivid recollections when we were in high school and maybe a little bit younger of we talked about this, I think, on another episode of like live TV, like when shows would air in first run. It was a big deal to sit and watch Cheers or Friends or
Mhm.
those might be later, but um, shows like that. I don't remember watching any of these. Definitely not Star Trek.
Yeah.
And I forget what was it? UHF? Was it with the higher channels?
Yeah.
Uh, so Channel 19 in Cincinnati was where all the syndicated shows would run. And I watched, it's not on this list, but I remember for sure I watched Gomer Pyle. Andy Griffith Show was on there. Batman for sure. Star Trek was probably later for me. I didn't get into sci-fi. I never got into Bonanza. I know a lot of people did. But yes, I watched those in second run. And then I don't remember the Vietnam War so much. I don't know if my parents sheltered us from it. I don't remember what we watched tonight, to be truthful. I do remember the Watergate hearings. I'd have to remember, was that
Oh,
74 or so? So I would have been
yeah.
less than 10. I remember that was a big deal. Boring as hell to me, but a big deal. Um, and that was on TV all the time whenever those were running. But yeah, I don't have memories of sitting down with my parents at that early age and just watching TV at night. So maybe I just went to bed earlier. Who knows? I did watch a lot of Cincinnati Reds games. I did do that.
Ah,
Listen on the radio too.
yeah. I just remember having for some of my early childhood memories are of being nervous and
Mm.
worried. And it came, I think, from just this constant coverage on the, on the TV. And I'm sure my parents were probably talking about things as well. And I thought about that as I was thinking about this episode, only because I can't imagine what kids feel like now, where it is overwhelming. I mean, I suppose the thing about the internet is you can create your own bubble and then you don't see news about the world or news about, upsetting things. But from my perspective, what's going on in the world right now is everywhere, and I can't imagine how nerve-wracking that must be for little kids. But anyway, we didn't go over the list. According to AI, according to Google anyway, which was using AI as I understand it, the top five rated shows that came out in 1966 were Star Trek at number five, the Batman show from 1966, which it premiered that year, if I recall correctly. Then the Andy Griffith Show, Gomer Pyle, and Bonanza. Bonanza being number one. I do remember those things being constantly on syndication, constantly watching them, as you said, on UHF. And, you get home from school and at least one of those shows would be on. But I don't have any specific recollection of watching them when they first came out. It's very interesting to me, though, because shows like Andy Griffith, actually, those top three shows, I believe they started out in black and white, and the final seasons of all three of those shows ended up in color because that's when that big transition was made. And I don't know what year that happened, but again, you can remember watching TV on syndication when you're a little kid, from school, and you'd watch an Andy Griffith show in black and white, and then the following would be another Andy Griffith show, and it'd be in color. And,
Mm.
I mean, imagine trying to explain that to kids these days that you used to have to watch TV and it would all be gray. Everything was just shades of gray, right? But all three of those shows, Bonanza was the same way. It definitely started out as a black and white show, and when it finally finished, because I think that was one of the longest running shows in TV history. I think it was like 20 years or close to 20 years. And it finished in color. Gomer Pyle definitely started in black and white and definitely finished in color. There were other shows too. I remember like I Dream of Jeannie was that way. It's funny that we were kids in that transition where, when we were born, there were probably still people listening to, radio plays and stuff. And not everybody had a TV back then, but that huge transition took place, and now it's completely different.
Yeah, and the black and white. I love the Andy Griffith Show. I don't know why, and I have a vivid recollection of the opening scenes of it, opening sequence. I think Opie skips a rock or something, or just
Right.
a good
Fishing
one fishing,
poles.
fishing
There's
poles.
It was the thing where they whistled, right? The theme was
Yep.
somebody whistling.
Yep. Yep. All
Yeah.
right. So these are things that we are still around in a lot of ways. Almost all these you can still listen to or watch somewhere for the most part. There's a lot of stuff from 1966 or, somewhere in between there that was a big deal back then and is gone or
Yes.
mostly gone.
Yeah, it was your idea when we were trying to when we were talking about what to talk about for this birthday episode, and you brought up the idea of how about we talk about things that don't exist anymore. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. That might be something. And then I started going through a list and jotting stuff down. I was like, holy shit, there's a lot of stuff that the kids these days, or even adults these days, wouldn't necessarily know what we were talking about.
So it's not on your list, but one of the ones that was a big deal for so long, and it's a funny scene from The Jerk, were phone books.
Yeah,
And you would
yeah,
get the phone books just the way it worked for me is they'd just show up at your mailbox, like on the ground in a plastic bag. Someone would drive around and throw you the newest version of either the white pages, which is where you look up residential numbers, or the yellow pages where you would look up business numbers. And business numbers were generally organized by category. Sometimes a pain in the ass to figure out which category you wanted to find. But you'd have to sort through. And then it's decent chance that some of those numbers were no longer valid because people would move or the businesses would close. So you'd have to wait till the next year. And then the other thing you could do if the number was invalid, but you really wanted to call that person, is call up information. I think it was
411.
411 or 555 1212
Oh yeah,
under
that's right.
area code.
That's right. It was that too.
And you talk to an operator and you'd ask them, usually say city, please. And then you would tell the city, and then they might direct you to a different person. And I think they were basically looking it up in a phone book. So,
Yeah, I think you're right. But yeah, I mean, I didn't try. I should have tried before we recorded this. Like, what happens if you call 411 now or 555?
yeah.
Because nobody needs it anymore. You just Google everything or use your
Yeah.
Maps app or whatever it is. But yeah, I can remember. I mean, everybody had phone books, and if you lived near a metropolitan area, the city phone book was huge, right? It'd be like the size of a
Yeah.
dictionary. So it's also what you would use. If your cousins came over and you had a little cousin that sit at the table, they'd sit on the phone book so that they could reach the table.
Now, what the
Yeah,
fuck do they use to boost kids up these days if they don't
I
have
don't
a,
know. Don't know.
I mean,
You
there's
know,
not that
and
many books that are that big or that wide.
and phone books disappeared in the last probably 15 years or so. But even
Yeah.
newspapers, newspapers exist. You can still get the Chicago Tribune, but now, it looks like a local, what are they, like one of those shopping weekly type newspapers. There's no advertising. There's very little. I used to love to get the Sunday paper, the Sunday Chicago Tribune. I had it delivered, so you go out and you grab that, and it would be 3 inches thick at least, and you'd go through and you'd sift through, you get rid of the ads, and then you would start with the sports page, and then you'd go to the comics, and then you'd go to entertainment, and you'd spend 2 or 3 hours on a Sunday just reading the paper, drinking your coffee and whatever. And I do kind of miss the newspaper. I miss going out to the driveway and grabbing the morning paper and taking a quick look at it before you go to work. I
Yeah.
definitely miss the Sunday papers. Those things are basically gone now. You can still, you find hard copy newspapers, but you know, I finally gave up subscribing to the Trib probably 10 years ago, and I was probably one of the last people in my neighborhood that was still getting a newspaper.
Yeah, there was something special about sitting down on Sundays with a newspaper. I'd always start with sports, read
Yep.
through other stuff, and I would wait and savor the comics. That
Last
was
thing.
usually the last thing that I would read, and I was so excited about it. Especially, and it was a huge deal when a favorite comic maybe got dropped by your local newspaper. That would piss me off. But luckily, they ran Calvin and Hobbes in repeat for a long time.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the things that it all kind of mashes together in your memory. But the other thing that I remember, and I did it a little bit, but I can remember my parents having on a Friday afternoon, having always to run to the bank and get cash for the weekend because there were no ATMs. I don't think my folks had credit cards back in the like 70s, and if they did, they weren't using them. So they'd always, my dad would always, we'd be with him, and he'd be like, I got to stop at the bank. I got to go to the bank before it closes. And it was solely so that they would have cash in case they wanted to do anything or take us anywhere on Saturday or Sunday because the banks were closed
Yep.
and there was no other way, to find, cash. And sometimes some places you could cash a check at a grocery store or something like that. But I have a vivid memory of both my being with my mom and being with my dad. Just about every week on a Friday, they would have to stop at a bank and make sure they cashed a check so they had some money for the weekend, which is just a funny thing to think of these days.
Yeah. I don't have as vivid of a memory of that, but I definitely remember. I mean, I don't remember when ATM started. Like, we go look it up. I do remember going to the bank a whole lot more when I was younger with my parents for all kinds of
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah. There was always a line. There was lots of people there. Not all banks even had drive-throughs, so we had I can vividly remember my dad parking and saying, "Just stay here," and he would run in and then he would run out. Maybe he was robbing the bank. Now that I think about it, well, that's for another episode.
But
Uh,
you have one on here that I was going to talk about because there's at least one state where it still exists. But
yeah.
gas station attendants. So back in the day, you'd go in. I remember in college, I it was self-service because I don't remember doing the gas before I got to college because where I grew up, we always had gas station attendants. So they'd come out, probably take your cash, or you'd say how much, and you tell them. They'd fill it up. While they were filling it up, they would wash your windshield, sometimes
Hmm.
your back window,
Check your oil.
um, check your oil. Generally, very nice people. And then you pay them and go. And then, as I said, I remember driving to college and going to a gas station and there was no attendant. I'm like, huh, I got to figure out how to do this myself, which is weird. I mean, I was 18 years old, but I didn't know how
You
to
sat there for
fucking
an
pump
hour.
gas.
Finally, they called the cops. They're like, "This guy's just sitting out there. I think he's casing a joint."
But I just drove my son to multiple states for college visits last week or the week before. And New Jersey
Hmm.
still requires gas station attendants. And I remember driving up and going, ah, fuck, they got gas station attendants because I just wanted to be done. And it always takes a little, they're always nice and it's fast enough. But now we're so used to doing it ourselves that it's almost an imposition to have it. But New Jersey, for whatever reason, probably to ensure more jobs, requires gas station attendants in all their gas stations.
Yeah, there. My daughter Anna had something she was doing in New Jersey a few months back, and she called from the car. She's like, "What do I do? I don't know what to do." I'm like, "Well, just let them fill up the tank. Just tell them how much you need." But yeah, she had no experience with that at all. I mean, that's as far as I know, the only state that does it. It's the only state I'm aware of anyway. And I haven't gotten gas in New Jersey since probably 1990. So I it is funny to think about how that was a specific gig that you were there were guys that that was their job was to be a gas station attendant. One of the things that I noticed when I was coming up with my list was how many things don't exist anymore that are related to the phone. Like the phone has become such a ubiquitous part of our society, of our world. And for basically for 99% of it is not to talk to people. It's everything else. It's the smartphone revolution that occurred, a decade ago or so, maybe a little bit more at this point. But there were so many things that were related to telephones when we were kids that don't exist anymore. Like, for example, uh, phone booths.
Yep.
You see them every once in a while, but there's usually not a phone in them. When I was in London. Actually, no, we were in Scotland. That's where it was. It wasn't London. And there were a couple phone booths around, which I thought was really interesting. But I think they were there just, for the ambiance as opposed to for any practical use. But I don't know about you, but in our house, we'd have a couple phones in the house, but there'd be the main phone. In our case, was the kitchen phone, and you had to have like a 40-foot long phone cord because you'd talk on the phone and you'd walk around the house, but it was there were no cordless phones at that point, and you'd trip over it. It was always tangled up. You'd have to untangle the phone cord, but it could literally reach from the kitchen all the way down the hallway to your own room. And when we were in high school, you'd talk on the phone with your girlfriend, and you'd go into your room and close the door so the cord would be across the hallway. And I can remember my dad like tripping on it and yelling at me, will you get off the fucking phone? God damn it, I'm sick of tripping on this goddamn cord. I mean, phone cords just don't exist anymore.
Or if you couldn't find the phone, you would just grab onto the cord and follow it to the end.
That's right, right.
Wherever it was last. And then the other one, I don't know if you had one, the rotary dials.
Oh
So
yeah.
you'd have to, and it would suck because if your finger got stuck or something midway, it would stop and like, God damn it, you have to hang up. That's another thing. Hanging up is a obsolete term. You don't hang up
Yeah.
anymore. But you literally hang up and then you pick it up, wait for the dial tone, and then you dial it again. And then if by chance you happen to fuck up the last number, you would call maybe the wrong number if you didn't hang up fast enough. And then you'd have to deal with that bullshit. So,
You always were hoping for the number. You were hoping it was going to be like low numbers in the phone number.
yes,
Because
exactly.
if it was a nine, it took forever to go all the way around. And it would have to come back. You're like, this number, what is this number? 987? Holy shit, I'm going to be here forever.
And zero was at the very end because I remember some of my phone numbers, ironically. I don't even know most people's phone numbers today. They're just stored in my phone. But I
Exactly.
remember my phone number, well, at least one of them is 513-863-5080. So that 5080 at the end, if I ever had to call it somewhere else and like dialing all the way around the goddamn phone.
That's definitely another
So,
thing is I at one point I probably had 30 phone numbers memorized. There were 30
yeah.
people I could call from memory. Now I barely remember my office number or my home number, let alone other people's phone number.
I still remember, I may forget now, but I roughly remember the phone number in the hallway in the house at the Fidel house.
Really?
Um,
That's
yeah,
impressive.
I'll have to press. It occurred to me some combination of things has to happen where it triggers it, but I
Right.
remembered it. I was like, that's that number. I think it ended with 1212, if I'm not mistaken. But
That's good, man. I can't remember that at all. Another random thing that I thought about was when we were little kids, every car had a cigarette lighter that you would push
yeah,
in and it would heat up so you could light your cigarette while you were driving. I don't remember the last time I saw a push-in cigarette lighter in a vehicle, but I remember it, and my mom smoked, so it was in use fairly often. Such a weird thing to put in a car, like that was a
yeah,
priority, have your
yeah,
cigarette lighter. Uh,
yeah. And as a kid, as you push it in, you pull it out, and it's all red or orangey, whatever it was.
mhm.
And I distinctly remember sticking my finger in there at least once,
Yeah.
and only once, to see how
Yeah.
fucking hot it was.
Yeah, my guess is there were a couple million kids who had cigarette burns or lighter burns of one sort or another because they were fucking around with the car cigarette lighter. And then one other thing that lasted even up into when we were in college, this is kind of off the track of some of the other stuff we talked about, but when we were younger, you gave your social security number to everyone.
Yeah.
Like it was
Yep.
just an ID number that you used. When we were at WashU, they used to post exam scores
Yep.
on the main bulletin board in the dorms and in like the academic buildings, and they would post because they were worried about confidentiality. They would post by your social security number and not your name. So,
Yeah.
I mean, can you imagine that now? That's just absolutely insane. That you could just about everybody had your social security number. You would just hand it out like you were like, yeah, no problem. It's like, yeah, my middle initial is this, and here's my social security number.
Yeah. If anybody called, just asked me what my social security number was, I'd have no qualms about giving to them back
Yeah,
then.
you just rattle it off.
Nowadays, you're like, what? I'm gonna call the cops if you ask my social security number, motherfucker. All right. As usual, we're talking about ourselves. Tom and I could ramble on for hours and hours. So we went through things that were important back in 1966, movies, television, music, and what doesn't exist since 1966, between now and 1966. That's what old people do, Tom. We're old.
Yeah, unfortunately, we did sound really old in this episode. I thought this was a good idea at the time, and now I'm like, ah, Jesus, nobody under the age of 55 is going to want to listen to it.
If we get any young kids to listen to this one as their first episode, we're done.
We're done. Yes. Even more done than we thought we were.
Or we could be, you guys want to listen to these old fucks talk about something stupid? We could go viral that way.
Maybe that's what it is. Maybe we've been thinking about this the wrong way. Well, anyway, I guess what I'd like to say is happy birthday, Chris.
Happy birthday, Tom.
Thanks.
I'm happy yours is before mine.
Yes.
No, I'm not. You're happy that mine's after yours because yours triggers your memory that mine's coming up soon.
That's true. It does help. My birthday is well situated because it's the week. It's just before Mother's Day, and I know your birthday is like 3 weeks after, so I can always you seldom are able to remember, and I don't know why you would. But I'm like a couple days after my birthday, I'm always like, oh yeah, you know what? Chris' birthday's coming up. I'll send him a text.
All right, send me a text, dude. Until then, let's do Loft of Wisdom.
You better open up your eyes, babe, because fools do get wise.
So back when we were in college, Chris and I loved to write quotes on the wall, so to speak. We put it on our Loft of Wisdom. And we would generally write down things that we thought were funny or smart or poignant or just ridiculous. And we've decided to continue that tradition by having a digital Loft of Wisdom at thirdsonginpodcast.com. What is your quote for this week?
When we talked about things that weren't around anymore, the thing that kept coming to me was payphones. And there's a song that I like. It's real catchy. It's from the band The Arkells out of Canada. It's called Leather Jacket. The refrain is, "You called me up on a payphone." They do that multiple times. At the end of the song, he does it 3 or 4 times, and he goes, "You call me up on the payphone." And I said, "Who the fuck uses a payphone?" And that's how the song ends. So that's my quote.
That's a perfect quote for this episode. Mine is frankly a little more melancholy, I suppose, from the novel All the Pretty Horses by Cormac McCarthy. The narrator of the book, the lead character, at one point says, "Between the wish and the thing, the world lies waiting." For me, that quote's kind of equal parts depressing and uplifting. It makes me think about growing old, which is certainly what this episode has made me think about for a bit. And the uplifting part is, I think, more powerful. It reminds me of the work to be done, what we still have ahead of us, but that you have to find your joy and find the adventure in the middle part between what you wish for and when you finish it. And I've said it many times in the past. I'm a huge fan of Cormac McCarthy's work, and All the Pretty Horses is one of my favorite novels. And I've yet to quote him. So that will go up on our Loft of Wisdom at thirdsonginpodcast.com. You can find a drop-down menu.
That's a good quote. I like it. I need to go and read that book. I've never read it in all these years.
Have you not? Oh, well, first of all, you got to read the book. It's one of the best American novels ever, in my opinion. I also recommend the movie. There's a film with Matt Damon. The first time I watched the movie, I thought it was okay. I watched it a couple times since then. Every time I watch it, I like it more. It's very, very, it holds very fast to the novel, I think, and it's definitely worth watching. But I would read the book first because the book is amazing. And now we're ready for Post Facto.
It's a mistake. It's a mistake.
Post Facto is where Tom and I correct things we got wrong in a previous episode, complete a thought, or just provide an update that we think our users would find useful for us. I usually don't make mistakes, at least not ones that I'm willing to admit. Tom usually is the primary voice for Post Facto. What you got?
I am. Yeah. And in this case, I made a very big mistake. When we, in our season 11 finale, when we talked about John Cusack films, we, as usual, we picked 2 songs for our playlist, and I perfectly described the song I wanted to go on the playlist. I described what movie it was from, I described what scene it was from, and I think I gave a fairly adept description of what the music was like and why I thought it was good for the playlist. What I got wrong was the title and the name of the person who sang. So
Minor details.
minor details. And in fact, we talked about it for a while because what I said it was I Can See Clearly Now by Johnny Nash. Now, in the back of my head, that didn't sound right because I can hear that song, right? I can see clearly now the rain is gone.
Yeah.
That's not the song I was describing when I discussed it. But for some reason, I locked into that name. I think I was looking at the soundtrack and I just picked the wrong track. It's actually the song Go by a band called Tones on Tail. And it is the song from the high school gym where they go for their reunion dance. And it is kind of a weird dancey song that's a little ethereal. It has the refrain in it is you hear in the movie at least twice. I think it goes yeah 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 yeah, you know, like that. It's very very kind of weird. It is definitely not I Can See Clearly Now. So I love the fact that I had to start season 12 with a giant correction from the final episode of season 11.
Well, I'll join you a little bit, even though we corrected it in the episode and had some fun with it. I somehow thought it said that Johnny Cash sang the song, not Johnny Nash.
Right.
And then I said, another great cover by Johnny Cash. And if for folks who listen to Johnny Cash enough, try to imagine him singing I Couldn't See Clearly. Johnny Cash singing that.
Yeah, no way. No way was that
for
going to
me,
happen.
for me to think that was a Johnny Cash cover. But that probably turned into a stinger for us at the end of the episode. So we got that going for us.
The way I look at my mistakes is it's more content. We also have a post facto from a listener and previous guest, our friend, great friend of the show, Andy Armstrong. He sent me a quick audio clip telling us that we missed a great family song when we were making our playlist with the Dragos, Emmy and Damien. So here's what Andy had to say.
Tom and Chris, Andy here. Just wanted to congratulate you on another good episode with the Dragos. Family episode was fantastic. Really loved it. The only concern I have is a possible post facto. The song from Mark Cohen, Things We've Handed Down, in my mind, is the best song that represents fatherhood I've ever heard. So, thought it belonged on the list, or at least an honorable mention. So, there you go. Post facto from Andy. Thanks, guys.
Another great suggestion by Andy. Thanks, Andy.
Now we have staff picks.
Just around the corner from you.
So staff picks is a perfect example of an anachronism. We didn't talk about the fact that video stores no longer exist, but that's one place that we took this idea from. You go into an old video store, Blockbuster, whatever, and up on the board would be staff picks, suggestions, new stuff that you might want to check out. Same thing in record stores and bookstores. Those sort of still exist. Staff picks is Tom and I's attempt to recommend new stuff, any of the different media, or stuff that's new to us.
This episode for our premiere, I have a relatively new TV series, season 2 of the show Ted, which is streaming on Peacock. It actually, as with most Peacock streamers, it comes out an episode a week. And all of the episodes are out now. So it's not brand new, but I am a big fan of the show. I thought season 1 was very funny. It's based on the film Ted, which was a Mark Wahlberg movie from probably 10 years ago. And I think there was a Ted 2, which frankly, I don't think was as good. But the TV show is a prequel to those movies. And season 2, which looks like it may be the last season of the show, is absolutely hilarious. Now, it is also extremely crude. There's tons of swearing. There's a scene at one point where 2 older brothers, like, you know, guys in their 30s or 40s or whatever, are wrestling and fighting each other. And you see one of the main characters' ass for what must be a 2-minute scene. It is absolutely crazy. So you have to have the ability to take a lot of crude language, some nudity, a lot of crude subject matter. But if you are okay with that stuff, there are so many funny lines in this show. I can't get enough of it. This is one my dad and I agree on. We've been texting lines from season 2 back and forth for the last 2 weeks. It is just a hilarious show, and I recommend it highly.
I've seen ads for it. I've never seen any of the Ted movies. I'm gonna take your word of advice, or I'm gonna take your recommendation, and maybe I'll watch a couple of the episodes. I'm not sure it's gonna float my house, though. I'm not sure I'll get away with
Yeah, you may have to watch.
it.
You may have to watch it with headphones on under the covers, I'm guessing. But it's not a family friendly show, let me put it that way. But the first movie was excellent. Second movie, I don't really remember being all that great, but both seasons of this of the show, I think, are just really well done. And oh, what's his name? The guy who created the film and the idea and the voice of Ted
Oh,
is the voice of Ted is Seth MacFarlane, and he's a very funny guy anyway, and also very crude in just about everything that he creates. But he does the voice throughout both seasons of the TV show, and again, just hilarious, hilarious. So many lines, one after another. It's hard to pick out one, but I think you would like it, even though you might have to watch it in your car in the driveway.
all
What's your step
right.
pick?
I've been wanting to recommend this one for a couple weeks, but I kept finding other things, and now this one seems very fitting. There's a band out of Minnesota called Turn, 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 named after the famous song, I think, by the Byrds. And there's three singers. Lead singer, well, sorry, there's three singers, two female, one male. I don't want to call any of them lead. But what first drew me to the band is that the male lead singer is Adam Levy from the Honey Dogs, one of my favorite bands. He's done solo stuff, but there's also two female singers, Savannah Smith and Barb Brinstad. So their sound evokes old time country. I thought a couple of the songs, Adam Levy sounded like Graham Parsons. Other bands they're compared to are Highway 61 era Bob Dylan. Adam Levy can definitely have that nasally sound of Dylan. They got some references to George Jones, the Lovins, Emmylou Harris, Scott Walker, so forth. But basically, a great tribute to old time country and harmonizing. I think as they continue to put out some of their own material, I'll like it even more. But as is, this is a solid album from start to finish. I definitely encourage you to check it out. Turn, 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 the band, and the name of the album is All Hat, No Cattle. All right, Tom. I know we're old, but even I remember that this is where we do our playlist picks.
Yes, every episode we each pick a song for our season-long playlist. This is the first episode of season 12. These will be the first two songs on that playlist, which you'll be able to find wherever you stream your music. You can find it on Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube Music, Amazon Music, etc., etc. Search for Third Song In, season 12. And what is your first song for our episode 1 playlist?
I saw what you picked, which inspired me to look at the list from 1966 as I scanned down the list a little bit past the top 5. One song that stood out to me, and I chose it for several reasons. One, my grandparents are huge country fans. Two, I love this song. And three, this refers back to an episode we did in season 10 with Rob Miller, who named one of their compilations after this song. The song is The Bottle Let Me Down by Merle Haggard. It was somewhere in the top 10 back then. My grandparents were huge Merle Haggard fans. I became a Merle Haggard fan. This is one of the ones that stands out for me, but we also had such fun with Rob, and that's one of my favorite albums from his
Yeah,
label.
that was the Bloodshot
That was the kids
Records.
one. Yeah,
the
that
kids
was
one, right?
that was the Bloodshot Kids album. Figured it was a fitting way to start, and you're going to go a little bit more rock, so let's
Yep.
do it.
So I did decide, because this is our birthday episode, I decided to find a single that was released in 1966. It is a Beatles song called Paperback Writer. I read a little bit about it. I've always loved that song. It's one of my favorite Beatles songs. And I found out that it was recorded for the album Revolver, but it wasn't on that album. And it was released apparently only as a single, and then later on in a bunch of collections. Pretty sure I heard it the first time in one. There was that set of Best of the Beatles albums that were broken down chronologically. I remember a red album cover and a blue album cover. I think this one might have been in the red album cover, the earlier ones. But it came out in 1966. Again, one of my favorite all-time Beatles songs, Paperback Writer. So that'll be the second song on this new season's playlist. So as we close this episode, I once again want to just take a moment and honor Alan Ladd, a kind of a long lost friend who I only just reconnected with. Sorry to see you go. He would have been the first guest we've ever had that I went to junior high school with. It sounds like he lived a wonderful life, had a wonderful family, and I'll be thinking about him. Third Song In is recorded in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, and Joliet, Illinois. You can email us your questions, your comments, and your suggestions to thirdsongin@gmail.com. We welcome any feedback you can give us.
You can also check out our website, thirdsonginpodcast.com. All kinds of information on there, including links to our blog, the episodes themselves, and Loft of Wisdom, as Tom talked about, and all kinds of stuff. So we update it almost daily. Check it out and let us know what you think about it.
Also, please follow us, rate and review our podcast wherever you listen to the podcast. Give us all of your fucking stars, share the podcast, email it to people, download it. Just go out on a street corner and get a soapbox and stand up there and tell people about the podcast. Do whatever you can to help us get the word out.
In addition to giving us all your fucking stars, we ask you to share our playlists. You know, it's funny. I tell you to do this every week, and I just went in the other day and saw the share playlist button, and I shared it with somebody. So
Nice. It's about
it's not
fucking
that
time.
hard. Even I can do it.
It's not that
Share
hard.
our playlists.
Come on, man. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Blue Sky. Please go to our social media. That's a great place to find stuff about Third Song In, but also, and more importantly, links and details, dates, appearances, all kinds of information about our past and future guests. Please follow us on those social media outlets and share that information as well.
Another place you can find us is on Substack. Tom and I take turns writing a blog each week. We've decided to go with Substack as a way for users to have easier access to it. You can actually subscribe to Third Song In on Substack, and on Friday mornings, you'll get the latest blog right in your inbox. Join us next week for a long-awaited episode, at least one long-awaited by me. We're going to look at our top 5 power ballads. Go, baby.
You've been listening to Third Song In with Chris Derrickson and Tom Polachek. Thanks for listening.
As we just did, seriously, dude, what is wrong with you?
I don't know. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is about me.
You're on mute, fuckhead.
Oh, fuck it. It seems a little strong for that. Just for being on mute.